So this week, if you're up to it, it's a bit of a challenge, I suppose.
I like challenges.
They sent one 35mm 1.8, the new S lens. It's light and...
No, I hate 35. Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It's Chris here from DPReview. And let's just address the whole 35mm lens issue. I'm sure there's lenses that you guys have out there that you just don't prefer, you don't find they work for your style or your look. I just always find it's a little bit wider than I want when I want a 50mm look, and it's not wide enough when I want to start playing with perspective. So I'm forced to use it. Here we go. And I'm shooting on the Nikon Z6. We've already talked quite a bit about this camera and its brother, the Z7. And today I just want to kind of talk about our experiences with it, see what kind of shots we get, enjoy the day, and hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Dude, this is slippery. We're trapped here forever, that's it. See, the only color we're going to find today is red Lamborghini, but I know some of you are going to get really excited about that. Another Lamborghini? What gives, man? Someone's making money. Now, I know in the show we talk a lot about the stats and the numbers and stuff. And what I really like about the Z6 is just the overall shooting platform. And I guess that comes down to a lot of factors. I like the grip, I like the controls, the touchscreen interface is excellent. But when you're actually taking photos, this camera just gives you that really stable kind of feel. Everything is easy to set, it's intuitive. The Nikon SLRs have a very similar feel. They always were well designed, but I like carrying this around more. Oh look, duckies, which I can barely see with the 35mm lens. There you go. You know, I will say though, one thing not to complain about is the excellent EVF. We've talked about it before, but the Nikon Z6 and Z7 just have this very gorgeous high-res EVF. 60 hertz, you know, it's not bad. There's no lag, you can view it very well. But the nicest thing about it, there's no res drop when you're focusing, there's no res drop when you're shooting. I mean, it's really quite a beautiful EVF. Pleasure to compose with, except with a 35mm lens. Now the Nikon Z6 has less focusing points than the Z7 due to a different sensor, but you're still getting 273 points. And again, you've got the excellent touchscreen interface. I've got the joystick on the back as well. So moving my focusing point around is very straightforward and simple. I like where the AF on button is. And so today, I think I'm going to test out the continuous focus primarily. Use my back button in AFC. I'm going to try single point. I'm going to try dynamic. This is often the way that I would set up a camera if I'm doing street shooting, or, you know, if I happen to see any wildlife with this awesome wildlife lens I've got on here. So just a point that I want to get across here, I noticed on the Z series, I'm trying to do a landscape with my wide angle lens here. So I'm getting low, you know, using it in the foreground, some sort of subject there. And that means that I'm holding it off like this in my hand and I'm shooting off the back screen. It rotates a little bit, but it doesn't rotate vertically. That's unfortunate. And on top of that, what I'm finding is that it's a little bit busy. If I hit the display key, I can clean up some of the top, but I can't just get like a clean composition where there's nothing but what the camera sees. And that means you have to resort to the EVF, because the EVF does letterbox it, and then it puts all that pertinent information in the letterboxing, so you get a nice clean composition. But it would be nice some cases to be able to do that on the back screen. Now you may have heard us already talking about how the Z series of cameras are a little bit lacking in dynamic range because of the banding issue that you'll find. But again, it's an extreme situation. It's not going to be a problem for most of you. Image quality here is excellent. We're not getting ISO 64 as a native ISO on the Z7. We're getting 100 as our native here on the Z6. But you know, on a day like today where the light is just so flat and gray, I could probably shoot all this on a Nikon D70. You guys would be able to tell the difference. So I've been using continuous autofocus a lot today, just with AF on, using dynamic group. And again, I like being able to touch the screen anywhere I want. You know, I'm trying to select the foreground just because I want my depth of field to cover the entire archway here. And it's easy to select. Joystick, touchscreen, either way, it's quite seamless. So the downside with XQD being a single slot is that it is going to be a pricey card format. You know, I mean, this camera is not a $4,000 camera. It is arguably a more affordable full frame entry-level camera, but you are going to pay for it with XQD cards. But on the plus side, this camera does only have one slot. I know a lot of people have talked about that, but at least the XQD format, in my opinion, is not only a fast, but also very rugged and dependable card format. No thin body to snap, no exposed pins like a CF port to get bent. I really do like the format. If I only had one, it's not a bad choice, but I can't use those affordable SDs. You know, there's a lot of reasons to like the Z6 over even the Z7, and not just the lower price point. Because we've got a lower res sensor here, it's easier on the processor. And I have to say, when I shot the Z7, I was a little bit disappointed with not how fast it shot, it's pretty quick, but how quick the buffer filled up. And I understand it's putting through big files, but this camera's quite a bit better. So I can shoot 12 frames per second. That's without automatic exposure and in 12-bit RAW format, but 9 frames per second if I'm shooting 14-bit. It's not bad. And then if I go even lower than that, you know, if I want to get auto exposure, well, 5.5 frames per second is sort of my maximum cap, which I still think is totally fine for the kind of stuff we're doing today. But the buffer does go for quite a bit longer. So I think if you're wanting to do more sports in action, street photography, the Z6 makes a lot more sense. So I'm assuming the vast majority of you are familiar with DPReview.com, its articles and its reviews, and so you've seen their now famous bike autofocus test. Now I don't have Richard Butler here and I don't have a really fancy road bike, but what I do have is a rentable Lime electronically assisted bike. So we set up the app, very convenient by the way, and got it all to work, and we learned a couple things. First off, when Jordan's riding a bike, he looks pissed off. Second thing we learned, the Z cameras have a really hard time in continuous autofocus, honestly. I mean, I tried single point, I tried dynamic area, I tried wide area, and I tried autofocus tracking, and you know, we've got pretty decent light. This camera's just always a little bit behind or going to the background. It just doesn't give me the confidence to feel that I can really tackle fast-moving subjects. Slow-moving subjects, no problem. Stationary objects, easy, but any continuous autofocus, we're just having issues. My most successful attempt was actually with tracking. I got one really good sequence, but then right after that, the next sequence, total dog shit. So I don't know, man. I think this is really what Nikon have to improve on this camera to get it to compete. Otherwise, everything else seems pretty solid. And that's not even to mention getting into low light. You get this camera to low light, the autofocusing's done. Oh, but you know, it's not all bad news. Let's keep in mind that Jordan did burn himself 14 calories on this epic ride. I found a puddle. I'm gonna do it. Man, that lack of fully articulating viewfinder is a pain though. You know, I probably don't need ISO 1250 for this shot. I think we're gonna head out of the downtown core. Obviously in photography, you want good light, you gotta make some of these things happen. You know, we don't have a ton of time, but I will say this, I really do like this particular lens, nothing against it, but I still don't like the 35mm focal length at all. All right, so it's time to wrap things up, and I just want to address, you haven't seen Jordan, but he's here, aren't you, Jordan?
I'm here.
Jordan's here, and he's just not doing the video portion because we already did a video comparing the Z6 and the Z7, and the Z6 really is the superior choice for video. It's an awesome camera, and that's not the only way that the Z6 improves over the Z7. I really find this camera to be the more exciting camera and to be the more versatile by far. We've talked about how it can shoot faster. I feel like it actually maybe continuously focuses slightly quicker as well, but you know what I think Nikon's really done well here on the Z6 and Z7 cameras is they've made something brand new, but they didn't mess up the ergonomics. This camera has such a great viewfinder and great controls and a very similar and intuitive interface that I just find it a joy to use. As a photographer, this camera is quick, simple, and straightforward. So I think that's a big win for them. When it comes to image quality, absolutely, if you need the higher res, you have that option, but 24 megapixels is plenty, I think. And this sensor's excellent. It's as good as a lot of the other stuff we've seen out there. It's very competitive, and I do feel that we are spoiled nowadays when it comes to image quality. So you're gonna like the photos that you get out of this camera as well. I do have to say on the Z6, the price point here puts it in a place where a lot of people would look at this as an entry-level full frame, and that's an exciting market. Sony is killing it with their A7 III, but rightfully so, because that camera is a versatile workhorse that can do everything, and the Z6 was so close. But the continuous autofocus is a real letdown, and yet that's such an important thing for many different photographers. For still life, this camera is brilliant. I would totally use the Z6 and the Z7 in the studio. I would totally use it for travel and landscape. There it can really shine. But so would the Sonys. Where this camera is going to let you down is the continuous autofocus capability. That is the big letdown. If that's not going to be a major issue for you, this camera makes a lot of sense. Is Nikon going to improve this? I'm sure they will, and we might even see some more firmware updates coming down the line. We've already seen some. So, you know, hopefully that will improve, but right now that is going to be the main limiting factor on this camera. Anyways, if you've got a lot of Nikon lenses, this could still be a very compelling thing to go for. I hope you found that very useful. Don't forget, check out our Instagram feeds and our Twitter feeds. Subscribe to the channel. Go to DPReview.com and see the latest reviews on this camera. It's coming out shortly. Otherwise, we'll join you very soon for some more videos.